Never buy these types of homes in Raleigh, North Carolina. Picture this. You just bought your dream home in Raleigh, North Carolina, only to discover that that updated electrical system is actually a fire hazard, or that beautiful synthetic stucco exterior is rotting the walls from the inside out. These are absolutely real possibilities, and sadly, most agents don't know enough to even warn you about them. If you're looking for a home in Raleigh, you need to know which kinds of homes see these common pitfalls. Hi, I'm Allie Buscemi, and I'm a Raleigh real estate professional. I've helped many families, and listen, I'm going to be completely honest about each problem type. So if you are serious about buying in this area, make sure to watch until the end, and don't hesitate to reach out with your questions. All my info is below. Homes with polybutylene piping. All right, the first one. If you're looking at any home built between 1978 and 1995, this first problem could flood your walls and drain your savings, and that is polybutylene piping. It's no longer the material of choice. It's been phased out since those years. This was the material of choice of the day. We've since then gone a long way, and now you'll find newer homes have PVC piping and older homes might have copper piping. But there's this little block of years that use polybutylene. What it is, it's gray or blue plastic pipes, but it degrades slowly from chlorinated water exposure. This was widely used in Raleigh during the 1980s building boom. It is very common, but it's something we always want to look out for. The financial consequences can be pretty intense. A complete repiping of the house can cost at the lowest end $5,000 up to $15,000, and that's before we even get into the drywall repair because they're going to be cutting into the walls to do this. Insurance companies may refuse to cover this or charge a higher premium, or instead of doing replumbing preventatively, they might wait until there's a disastrous incident. And it's not to say that these homes are completely out of the question. It just needs to be something you're aware of, so you're making an educated decision, and you need to know that that is something you might need to have on hand in the budget to upgrade the plumbing of the home. The North Carolina Real Estate Commission even acknowledges that this is a serious issue with piping. However, it's not a defect in itself if it's not leaking yet. Now we're going to talk about problematic clay and surface area that can lead to foundation problems. Raleigh sits on expansive soils. It's very heavy red clay. You'll know this if you get into gardening in our region. And this is all throughout North Carolina. There's nothing you can do about that, but foundation repairs can be very expensive. The problem is that the clay soils expand and contract with the change in humidity and just over time. Foundation movement can cause doors and windows to stick and sloping floors, and it can make the home unsafe eventually. Warning signs of this are something I look for during showings. You might be imagining your furniture, what goes in what room, how you're going to play in the backyard. I'm looking at the less cute things like signs of foundation problems. The repair cost breakdown. So a minor crack repair sometimes can be just drywall. But if it's getting bigger and a structural engineer deems that it's a growing problem, you might need to stabilize the entire house with jacks, and that can cost between $5,000 to $10,000, let's say, maybe up to $15,000 if it's a large footprint foundation. Severe foundation movement can cost even more than that to stabilize the home. Now we're going to talk about flips, especially unpermitted flips. With house flipping activity up 64% since 2020, unpermitted work has become a massive problem that could leave you cleaning up someone else's mess. The scope. Many major renovations skip the permitting process, so the city is not coming back to verify that the work has been done up to par. Companies do this to rush the process. They do this to save money on permitting fees, and that can be an indication that they're cutting corners somewhere else too. All this info is according to Wake County building and permitting data. All that information is publicly available. So if we know major work has been done to a home, I'm going to pull the permits and see that they have played by the rules. Now, some flips are very attractive, and I understand why people are drawn to them. Personally, I prefer a home that's been lovingly renovated by the owners who did it for themselves and lived in it. However, with flips, I just always want to make sure that it's not just shiny on the surface. Have the major systems been updated? Has the crawl space been touched? Has the roof been touched? Or is it literally just what meets the eye? Common unpermitted problems are electrical work is not up to code, maybe there were plumbing modifications, maybe walls were moved and an engineer wasn't consulted about whether that was safe. Structural changes absolutely need engineering, approval, and permits in Wake County. Financial consequences. Retroactive permits cost a lot more more than doing it as you go. City fees can range from $5,000 to $15,000, and in some really bad cases, they might want this work knocked down. Insurance may not cover damages on unpermitted work. This is how I protect my clients from this. I'm always going to check on what permits were pulled if major changes have been made to the property. Always going to get professional inspections. If there's any indication of serious issues, I'm going to call out specialists to inspect as well. And now wait until you hear about flood risks, because even if the foundation and the permits check out, the next issue could flood your investment. Homes in high-risk flood zones. So Raleigh is safe from flooding because we're not coastal, right? Well, not so much. Hurricane Fran in 1996 caused over $900 million in Wake County. New FEMA flood maps were released in July 2022, and I always want to check if there's a flood zone on the property. Local flood-prone areas, properties near the Neuse River, the Crabtree Creek, face increased risks, and you'll also be required to carry costlier insurance. Annual flood insurance averages around $1,300. Properties with stormwater issues from nearby construction. Nearby construction can change the runoff, the way the water flows throughout a neighborhood. New developments redirect stormwater runoff to neighboring properties. Wake County has added 66,000 housing units between 2020 and 2024, so we just want to make sure that whatever you're looking at, the city has made proper stormwater plans for that neighborhood. The consequences of this can be sudden flooding where none existed, where there was no flood zone, erosion and drainage issues, which can also affect a foundation as that soil gets soggier. Property owners don't really have any discourse against us after close, and the problems might not show until the first heavy rain. Protection resources. We can always check plan developments through the Wake County Planning and Development website. We can review stormwater management plans and make sure that there's a plan in place. And unfortunately, we're not even done talking about water damage. It's that pesky, and the next issue has an even worse track record. Homes with synthetic stucco. EIFS, as it is called. This is another old material that's not used anymore because it's problematic. In the 1990s, this was a siding system. It looks like stucco, but behind it is like a mesh board and basically kind of cardboard. And what happens is water gets behind it and the walls can start rotting or having mold issues, and you can't see it until it's basically too late. There's been a lot of class action lawsuits about this. There's a specific box on our disclosure form that the seller needs to check if it's a synthetic stucco product. Raleigh actually imposed a suspension on EIFS due to problems with it. If you love a home that has synthetic stucco, it is something that we can verify that it's in good shape, and it can be resealed to keep the water away from it. The properties can be infrared scanned to check for water damage behind the wall, so it doesn't mean that's completely out of the picture, but it does mean I want to bring in a specialist to do those inspections. Homes with water damage or mold issues. Those two things go hand in hand. Raleigh is a very humid climate. Water damage can go unnoticed, and people don't disclose it as they should, or they might not even know it's happening. This can create health hazards, and it can cost a lot of money to remediate it in a home. Climate is a factor here, of course. We have very humid conditions, and those are ideal for mold growth. This climate can cause a lot of issues, in the crawl space especially. The crawl space is a little space beneath a home. We don't really do a lot of basements here in Raleigh, but most are on a crawl space here. And what happens is high moisture, humidity, any little water leak can spur the start of mold. It's actually pretty common and it can be remediated. So it's not something that has to completely rule out a property. We just want to see that the problem is not hugely widespread, and hopefully we can get the seller to take care of it. Newer construction has prevention measures in place. They have a vapor barrier, which is basically just a thick sheet of plastic down on the earth, and that helps keep the moisture level down. And in many homes, that's enough. Older homes might not have a vapor barrier, so we're always going to take a peek in the crawl space during a showing to see what the scene is like down there. All these problems can be dealt with, but you have to deal with them or else it keeps growing. If the conditions are right for mold and mold has started, mold keeps growing. Mold remediation I'd say on the low end could be $1,200 for a smaller home. They're basically spraying it with a bleach-like chemical, cleaning it off. And if the moisture level is adjusted and the mold has been cleaned, that can be enough. But if it's widespread and then starts to go into the house, that's what can be problematic. Crawl space encapsulation can be maybe on the low end $3,500 up to $5,000 to $7,000 depending on the size of the house. A dehumidifier system, if you only need one, might be $2,500. If you need two, obviously it could be double that. So yes, water problems are expensive and awful. However, the next issue could literally burn your house down. So let's pay attention to that too. Before I show you this, make sure you subscribe and let me know in the comments if this video is helpful for you or if you've ever dealt with any of these issues. Homes with dated electrical systems. I love historic homes. They're amazing. However, the electric is often historic as well, and that is something we need to assess. Is there double tapped wiring? Is the voltage adequate? Because to put a home on the market, it does not need to be up to 2025 code. It's the code from when it was built. So knob and tube wiring were from the 1880s to 1950s. So historic areas like Oakwood and Mordecai, we might find homes that have this dated wiring. And again, if you love the idea of historic home and that work is in the budget and you're going into it with open eyes, then this home could still be a great option for you. But it's just something we need to keep in mind when we're viewing historic properties. Aluminum wiring is an issue from the 70s, and the connections can fail, which can create a fire risk, and it also can cause overheating at certain points. Fire hazards from overheated connections, and insurance companies might refuse coverage if it's a knob and tube system because it's that dated. Replacement cost. So completely rewiring a house is a big job. To replace all aluminum wiring with copper, it could be $3,700, maybe up to $8,000, depending on the size of the home. Again, if you love historic homes, then you probably already know about this common pitfall, and that home could still be a great investment if you're getting it at a great price, if you're willing to do the work and you're going at it with totally open eyes. But it's just something we want to know before we put that offer in. Let's shift gears and talk about the tiny little things that could be eating your house. Of course, I am talking about termites. Raleigh, again, has a very humid, hot climate. And yes, that's great for summer fun, but it's also great for termites. And severe infestations can really compromise a home structure. If you're buying a home on a VA loan, they are especially looking out for this, and it can cause your loan to not be funded if there's any hint of termite damage. Warning signs: hollow sounding wood when tapped. You can see their little trail lines they leave sometimes in the foundation. We're always going to do a termite inspection along with your general inspection. And because these little buggies can cause structural damage, it can compromise load-bearing structures. They're literally eating the wood. It can make the home unsafe to be in. Treatment, repairs, and costs. This is a problem. It is so much cheaper to get ahead of and to prevent than it is to undo the damage, because often homeowners don't realize until the damage is pretty serious. Professional treatment, just to get rid of the bugs themselves, that's on the low end, let's say $500 to $2,000. But structural repairs can be $10,000, $15,000, and beams need to be replaced or jacks need to be put in. Ongoing prevention is only a couple $100 a year. So if I see a home has bait traps around the house and that the homeowner has been proactive about preventing termites, that's always a great sign. Homes with failing HVACs. So we've already discussed Raleigh's climate. It is hot, it is humid, and winters are pretty mild at least. But what if you have a failing HVAC? It's not just uncomfortable, it's expensive. Systems have a life of about 15 to 20 years. And past that, they're approaching or at the end of their life. And some things can put more stress on the system as well. Poor maintenance, if the homeowner hasn't been getting it serviced and looked into every year. Ductwork problems can also put additional stress on the system. And it might seem like a good idea to put purification filters into your air intake, but it can actually make your HVAC system work harder to suck through those filters. Now, the age of an HVAC system should be on the property disclosure report. However, sometimes the homeowner just doesn't know. So we're going to look at the system itself. Sometimes they literally look vintage, and we can tell it's on its last legs just visually. Because even if it's still functional but it's ancient, it could be very expensive and burn a lot of electricity, and you just never know when that system's going to go and you're going to have to pay for the new one. So failure during the summer months, it can honestly be an emergency situation, especially for immunocompromised people or the elderly or young children. It can get over 100 degrees here. That is not something you want to live with. A complete replacement for an HVAC system is probably going to be around 10 grand per unit, and it can get more than that. And again, this is not to say that if you love a home and it has an ancient HVAC, that home's out of the question. We just need to make sure that the math makes sense. And again, if you're coming to the property with totally open eyes and you have that in your budget and you're getting a great deal on the house, then it could totally still make sense. But if you're like a young first-time homeowner and you're putting down your every last dollar just to buy this home, don't buy a home that's going to cost you 50 grand the first year. So the conclusion, these are 10 major home issues that could cost you big bucks in unexpected repairs. But now you have the insider knowledge that most buyers don't have. And to be honest, you don't need to be an expert on this stuff. You can just hire an expert. So let's find you a home that suits your needs, suits your wants, and that is a great investment for you. I help families navigate their moves to Raleigh all day, every day, and I am always looking out for these pitfalls way over the aesthetics. So drop me a line at ali.buscemi@compass.com. My phone number's below. I'm pretty easy to find. Send me a message. Let me help you. Why don't you go ahead and click on this video next? In it, I'm completely honest about the real pros and cons of living here in Raleigh. You'll be glad you watched it. Thanks for being here. See you next time.